Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Welcome all to SimSpeed TV this Friday night. It's a V8SCOPS weekend and you know what time it is. It's time for SCOPS supports. We've got, of course, the GTC category and the V8s later on tonight here at the Circuito de Jerez. A fantastic circuit indeed. We've seen brilliant racing here in Logitech G Pro Invitational and V8 Vets throughout the week, and it's sure to continue here tonight with quite a good set of drivers ready to take to the track in their GT4 and TCR machines here on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Kick. It's me, Reese Gardner, with David Haynes joining me for tonight's broadcast. Jay Kennedy is in behind the scenes in the producer's chair, pressing all of the buttons. Well, David, it's been a while since we've commentated together, and it's really good to be here with you again at such a fantastic track. The Circuito de Jerez has proven to be quite a good circuit for racing since joining the iRacing service some time ago.
Oh, it's good. It's flowing. It's got a couple of changes of direction. It's got a few big stops. Overall, it works very well. And here it is. Deep into the south of Spain, makes it great for winter testing. That's one of the things it's super popular with, but it is popular all year round with car testing, bike testing, and racing. And, well, here it is. Current layout, 4.4 kilometers. So just about right. Are we not racing no chicane there, 11 and 12?
I believe I'll have to double check on that. It is correct. Unfortunately, we have the wrong graphic there, but rest assured, we are not taking the Ayrton Senna chicane, and turn 11 is just going to be a full-on sweeper to the right here tonight. So that's going to be an extra challenge the drivers will face. The left side tyres certainly take a pounding around here.
Makes that final hairpin an even better overtaking opportunity as well, with the pit entry challenging just before that and strictly enforced with its limits. But yeah, then your best overtaking opportunity, sort of turn 6, turn 1 even there as well, if you get a better run out of the final hairpin, which is just slightly off camber in some places in some ways. So it's a good circuit for flowing a little bit of speed and setting up your attack, 1, 2, 3 corners in advance.
Yeah, indeed. Seen plenty of moves started at turn 1 and concluded out of turn 2. Well, this is the format for tonight's GTC race with the GT4 and TCR cars. 10 minutes of qualifying that the drivers have almost concluded, and a 40-minute race with 1 compulsory pit stop required. Of course, the crew at Aussie Online Gaming are behind the scenes, making sure that everything is spick and span, and we'll have manual safety cars as well. In the GT4 class, Matthew Pignata is currently at the top, but not by much from Luke Swan, who's gone from Iridium Sim Sports to 9.5 just a couple of weeks ago. So another of many team changes that we've seen in the Oz and Z sim racing community in the last few months, David.
Yeah, indeed. So that makes it, a tie there, third and fourth, and with your top 10 on screen in TCR with Brenton Hobson ahead of Damon Mulqueen and 50 points there.
Yeah, indeed. TCR has been the domain of Synergy Sim Racing, and Hobson in his Audi has certainly had a lot of success so far. Damon Mulqueen, some would say he is the faster driver, but he hasn't had as much luck in the races, so we'll have to wait and see what he can do here at Jerez. And speaking of, qualifying's just concluded, and we have a grid ready for this 40-minute race. The GT4 class has been taken by Nicholas Lacassis. He is going to start alongside Russell Pepperell at the front of the field. Jordan Malcolm is going to start in third place alongside the newly 9.5'd Luke Swan. And then championship leader Matthew Pignato is going to start out of fifth place alongside Orbit Motorsports' Taylor Oakes. Peter Pavlovich is going to take the Pacific Esports Racing Mercedes out of seventh alongside Alex Schuler. And then JJ Wallace will take the ninth spot. I believe that's Craig Mason, different name in Sim. Mark Noble starting alongside him with Linton Wills and Cole Boykin, the last cars to start our GT4 grid.
And then as he leads the championship, he leads the qualifying on the TCR's Brenton Hobson from Damon Mulqueen. Will be the front row for these touring cars. And then got Robert Henry and Tyson Hanmer the row behind. Row following that is Brady Baldwin and Edward Shelley. And then Douglas Gowans and Garen Batson back there. And you've got a couple more cars in the turbo front wheel drive style of Robbie Bradbury, Stephen Banks, and Simon Gorofsky and Scott Griffiths.
Indeed, 12 GT4s, 12 TCRs getting ready to take to the formation lap here at Jerez. That is a rolling start for the GTC category, so we won't be seeing any start line shenanigans, at least like we usually see in the V8s, but we'll certainly be seeing some interesting runs coming off that hairpin there. Lacassis is going to be starting on driver's right there. He's the blue car on the left of your screen. Pepperell alongside him. And we are pulling away around this formation lap as we speak. So we can take a bit of a slow tour, David, around the Circuito de Jerez and really get an eye in for what this circuit's going to be like. The weather conditions at the moment, 24-degree track temperature, and it is very foggy out there at the moment. So I'm not too sure exactly what that's going to do to car performance, but it's certainly going to be difficult in terms of visibility.
Yeah, and I note we had one or two drivers not on the grid there. So I think Cole Buchan not on the grid from the GT4 cars. And there was one TCR I wasn't sure about, but it looks like we've got all of them right now.
Yeah, good to see. Good to see indeed. This sequence of corners here coming up to the hairpin is certainly going to be a place we see some action, a series of sweepers coming out of the turn 2 hairpin. Hobson just maintaining safety car speed. They've given a nice gap to the GT4 category. And then the old layout of the circuit used to go hard right immediately after that sequence of left-handers, but in 1994 it was changed to be a much more simple sweeping turn to the right coming onto the back straight. That's going to lead up to the prime overtaking opportunity on this track, the dry sack hairpin.
Yes, indeed, and a good number of renovations done to this place over the years, increasing the safety, increasing the accessibility for spectators as its popularity grew. Only thing I can mark any points down about this this great circuit is I think not only the haulers in the paddock, but the medical helicopters, they've got US registrations on them. How's a helicopter going to get from the US to Spain?
Probably on the back of an aircraft carrier or folded up inside a 747. Not too sure about that, but regardless, it is, I suppose, iRacing owned. We'll have to just wait and see how they get it back to America when we eventually go to the next few rounds. But we're coming into the last part of the lap now, David, and this double right-hander is certainly going to test the drivers. You've got to try and keep the mechanical grip up through here. The second of these right-handers is a little bit faster, and it's difficult to get the line right because you need to carry maximum speed through turn 11.
Yes, exactly, and this is where there is a chicane that we're not using today. Sometimes gets used in some configurations, but without it, you carry more speed through here, heading towards the final corner where you could maybe sneak a little look down the inside, but also pay respect to where the pit entry is here. You cannot cut any of the grass on your way into pit lane without getting penalised. You need to be so surgically precise, just like our safety car driver is right now.
Indeed, that's the last time we're going to be seeing the iRacing controlled AI pace car. And now it's up to the start for the GT4s. Nicholas Lacassis hesitated a little bit, but he is away, and the green flag flies. Lacassis will lead the way here on the first lap. Pepperell already going defensive versus Jordan Malcolm. He manages to keep second as Malcolm gives a big hit to Luke Swan. Gets sent wide, does the 9.5 Porsche Cayman. Meanwhile, our TCR field's gotten off to a start. Mulqueen already defensive versus Robert Henry in the KSR car. Nearly gives him a tap, but they get through cleanly.
Second row with some excitement in the TCRs there as well, as Tyson Hanmer got ahead of Robert Henry and looks to be staying there for the moment as well. So not a whole lot of change off the front two rows, but they've got drama.
Yeah, looks like the AVR machine of Linton Wills finding himself with a big angry pack of TCRs around him. So this is a bit of traffic, a bit too early here for Linton, and the TCR runners are going to feel a bit awkward about this as well, having a GT4 trying to make its way through on them here on the first lap. There's been a few more position changes in the GT4 class. I'm seeing Alex Schuler losing positions, but Linton Wills in the Alpha Venturi car will cleanly make his way through here on Mulqueen, I would imagine, as there's a bit of a spin for someone behind. Meanwhile, Russell Pepperell has taken the GT4 lead off Nicholas Lacassis, and it looks like he ran wide through the left-hander. That's the reason why those positions have changed. Mercedes leading at Jerez.
Cold tyres on the GT4 are always a little bit of a challenge, but Tyson Hanmer has a bone to pick about this.
Oh, he certainly does. Head on into the barriers after getting turned around on the exit of Drysack, and he'll ideally get going here. Looks like Brady Baldwin's had issues as well. Hanmer is still stopped, so I don't know if we're going to be seeing a safety car right at the start of the race, or if he's close enough to a marshal's point that he can be safely towed off the road. Of course, it is manual safety cars and V8SCOPS supports, so if a driver can't make it back to the pits under their own power, they have to request a tow from race control, and if they're not in a safe position, the safety car is called. Well, it looks like they're going to race on for now. The battle for the lead is intensifying.
Right, as you call it, we do get the safety car. So Tyson Hanmer going nowhere after that, being squeezed, hot dog out of the bun from in the middle of a 3 wide.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
Don't grip your hot dogs too tight.
No, certainly not. They won't taste as good ultimately. I think, you know, that's just a consequence of the TCRs being how they are mechanically. Is you know, if you're caught in a battle like that, someone rubs up against your rear quarter, you're going to get turned around. The rear end is quite light in those cars, and it's only the fronts that are driving the thing forward. We'll get another eye on what happened to Linton Wills on the first lap here. It looks like he just lost it by himself. Traction control, I think, kicking in the middle of a slide, and that just made it worse for him.
GT4 cold tyres are always a bit of a pain, and so, yeah, just there on the race start, the grip wasn't where it was, say, at the end of qualifying. A little bit more caution was needed, but they do that so easily before the temperature gets into the tyres. It should be, you know, much better now and better when we get the safety car restart. But at least in that moment, it was a big challenge.
This is what happened to Brady Baldwin, meanwhile, up behind Robert Henry and trying to make a move on his teammate Mulqueen, but then that's a bit of a weird incident there. I didn't see any contact. It might have been Netco, not too sure, but regardless, Baldwin losing the rear end. It seems like these foggy conditions are resulting in not much tyre warm-up. But it's the end of lap 2, and that means that the pit window is opened, and Brenton Hobson is going to be taking his pit stop early. Same for his teammate Mulqueen, Douglas Gowans, Garen Batten, Robbie Bradbury, and Stephen Banks also in the lane, with Scott Griffiths and Brady Baldwin trailing behind. Robert Henry is going to stay out and lead the TCR category. We haven't anyone from GT4 come in.
No, I think they all did go past, didn't they? Whereas TCR, everyone was well excited to get into lane, except for the notable exceptions, Robert Henry, Simon Gorowski, and Edward Shelley. So now Brenton Hobson is leading of the cars that have been through the lane and will close up behind those 3 that stayed out. So what's the thought there? TCR think, oh yeah, we're all good from here, but GT4 maybe not?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, TCR
Or
does...
is the track position against the TCRs more critical?
I think maybe track position against TCR is more critical potentially, because there is a pace difference between TCR and GT4, but around a track like this, I don't think there's much of it. I mean, we look at the qualifying times here. Robert Henry, Brenton Hobson, TCR pole was only 4 seconds slower around the lap than Nicholas Lacassis. Now, that might seem like quite a big margin, but you got to remember, the only places the GT4s really have one on the TCRs is the straights. There's a lot of flowing corners around here, and it's going to be difficult to pass TCRs, so ideally, they'd want to stay ahead of them.
Yeah, as Linton Wills maybe pointed out, once you're amongst the TCRs, it's really challenging to run the natural lines for a GT4 that allow a GT4 to be quick. Because on the braking, turn-in, and apex speeds, the TCRs aren't so bad. But with the front-wheel drive, they're later getting to throttle in the exits of the corners, and they don't have quite the same straight line speed as a GT4. That's where rain gets very interesting. I think it affects the GT4s more than it affects the TCRs. There's some other classes of racing out there as well where just a little bit of rain and suddenly the top class doesn't look so hot compared to the slower class. Hypercar don't seem like they handle the rain nearly as well as a GT3 does, for example.
Yeah, exactly. I had a go at the GTPs during week 13 in the rain, and it was downright impossible. Well, rain not quite ready for the GT4 class yet, but it is going to be coming in the next build. As have a look at that interesting move from Jordan Malcolm. He's going to make his way into the pits in the GT4 category. The safety car is going to stay out for one more lap. Maybe, Linton Wills coming in as well. Not much surprise there. Might as well get his pit stop out of the way under safety car, and he'll be good
I saw
to the
something
end.
very, very interesting there. Because of the amount of shortcut that the pit entry is, and because we're under safety car, you've got to check up a little bit so that you don't enter the lane before the cars that are going around the outside there. The safety car line works a little bit differently. David Mulqueen had a slowdown penalty, I guess, that he appears to have cleared. No one else has a black flag or anything, waiting on pit exit to open.
Yep, Jordan Malcolm will come out ahead of the TCRs that made their way back into the pits. So 2 stops for Mulqueen, Batten, Bradbury, and Banks. They are obviously trying to get the fuel topped up a bit. TCR has more of a fuel restriction than GT4 in this category of racing. So I think just trying to ensure that they're going to get to the end, but that means that our field is a little mixed up. We've got Henry, Shelley, Hobson, and Gowans, our top 4 TCRs, then Jordan Malcolm, then Gorowski and Mulqueen, and then Linton Wills. 2 GT4s mixed up in the TCR pack. No one else, aside from the ones that we've mentioned, have pitted. Robert Henry will lead the TCR category, but for how long? Deciding not to come in under safety car might have hurt him and Edward Shelley.
Of course, an unrestricted fuel tank of the GT4 is going to go about 60 minutes of racing. An unrestricted fuel tank in TCR is going to go almost 100 minutes of racing. So you do need to trim the TCRs back a little bit to work, back a little bit more to work in this format. Safety car will be in at the end of this lap, and boy, do we have a big jumble of strategies going on here.
Yeah, indeed we do. Most of the GT4 field not coming to the pit lane, most of the TCR field having come to the pit lane, some of them twice. While the proven energy Porsche Mission R is accelerating away from the field, and now we can get back to green flag racing in just a couple of corners time. The question is for GT4, can Nicholas Lacassis get back past Russell Pepperell? Lacassis had it over Pepperell in qualifying, but it seems like in terms of the race, Pepperell able to hit his marks just a little better. Matthew Pignata also working his way up to third from fifth. He's the championship leader in GT4. So he has got it all to play for here when we get this safety car restart going. Through Lorenzo and out onto the throttle comes Russell Pepperell. Nice clear start for the GT4 field. We are back to racing in V8SCOPS supports. And TCR will get going as well with a couple of GT4s in the mix. Henry leads the way and he's followed by Shelley and Hobson. Already making moves are Linton Wills and Jordan Malcolm getting into the mix here in the TCR field. But other than that, looks like a pretty clean start.
Yeah, and that gap between GT4 and TCR, I guess, is exactly why as a GT4 you wouldn't want to be mingled back in the TCRs, because already it's cost you a couple of seconds. You're not part of this exciting leading battle at the moment. You're still seeing the tyres come in a little bit as they've cooled off, and they really only had one green flag lap to get temperature in, so that's what they're settling into right now.
Russell Pepperell has fallen to second spot. He ran wide in turn one and immediately let Lacassis back through. So now the onus is on him to get the lead back once more. Pignata almost made his way past, but Pepperell was very quick to dispatch him. And we see that Luke Swan is sticking with these guys as well. 29 minutes remain in the race as it looks like there's been a problem for Mark Noble. Oh, that's heavy damage there for the KRF Motorsports McLaren. But he will keep it rolling, fortunately for him. Just seems like there was a coming together back in the GT4 pack, but another racing lap is about to conclude here, and it is still Lacassis from Pepperell. But how much longer will this battle go on?
28 minutes 35 seconds, I reckon. That's my estimate. And then the end of the lap after that. So you do have those other GT4 cars now starting to clear their way through the TCR field, and they'd be hoping that that sort of 6 or 7 seconds of fuel that they added under safety car helps them negate for the fact that they started this restart 6 seconds away from the race lead.
Yeah, that'll be the big question, won't it? It looks to me like Edward Shelley has lost a couple of positions there. He ended up running through the gravel trap at the end of the last lap and giving up the position there to Hobson. So now Doug Gowans will face him for potentially another position.
Turn 3, they always cut a little bit out of, just a super fast little kink there, but then you're going to try to get a good exit off this really long right-hander onto the back straight and then approaching braking zone at the hairpin. Again, not that far off the back of a bunch of GT4s, which can be a bit of a hassle in the mind for, second, third, fourth here. Maybe costs their class leader a tiny bit of time as well.
Yeah, indeed. There would have been a tyre change for some of the TCRs potentially, though I'm not seeing any pit stops that betray that. I think it's just going to be fuel only for them. Post-race investigation, meanwhile, for the contact between Hanmer and Baldwin on lap 1. Baldwin already was on comms saying that Hanmer was inside of him, so internet might have played a part in all of that. Whether it's Baldwin's internet or not, we're not sure, but considering the incident that Baldwin had immediately after, a very suspicious looking spin, maybe his internet was having trouble, but we'll obviously find out in due course. So, at the end of this lap, Lacassis, Pepperell and Pignata still up the front here in GT4. Pepperell looking the fastest of them, with a 1:45.101 to his name. But the fighting will still continue in the TCR class, just forming into single file for the time being. Hobson will be giving chase here to Robert Henry, who, remember, has not visited the pit lane yet.
And this is a little further back. Cars that went through the lane twice made sure they really, really topped off that fuel tank before the restart. Are they now hitting, you know, Alexander Rossi, Danica Patrick fuel-saving levels right now in this one?
That is the question, as Taylor Oakes makes a move on Peter Pavlovich. The Mercedes trade places. Alex Schuler up behind in the Porsche, trying to make some moves as well. Pavlovich will be a little bit unsettled by that move, and there's a potential there for Schuler to move on past, but not enough of a run thus far. So that's the only change of position we've seen on this lap so far. Russell Pepperell still keeping Nick Lacassis very honest. He's giving chase, and man, they are pushing so hard through this section. They're taking everything out of the circuit they possibly can. As long as you got two wheels on those blue and white curbs, you're good. Then they're using every inch of it.
And picking up the pace significantly as they go. So now getting towards a longer green flag run, getting more confidence underneath themselves, and the lap times reset the fastest lap of the race once again.
Brilliant time from Russell Pepperell. 44.9, but 44.8 for Nicholas Lacassis. Brilliant
stuff. 2 laps
stuff.
in a row that lap time hasn't been an official fastest lap though for Lacassis. So he's using a little bit more than Pepperell and Pignata behind, apparently.
Yeah, he'll have to keep an eye on his incident points. As Schuler now rounding up Peter Pavlovich. Taylor Oakes is just driving away ahead. Seems like Pavlovich here having a bit of trouble keeping up the pace in this field. Schuler will try his best to get a good run out of the long right-hand sweeper. Poke the nose out. Is this going to be a move? Maybe a tiny bit later on the brakes, but not quite close enough. Has he pressured Pavlovich into a mistake, though? I think he has. A little bit wide for the Mercedes.
Said, I'm going to brake late here. You're going to have to brake just a little bit later, and indeed, that's what happened. To open up that gap, keep the pressure on, but it doesn't help the two of them catch the cars further in front. It definitely gets your opponent a little on the back foot there when you're clearly showing your intent.
Indeed. The battle is starting to heat up for the TCR lead as well. Hobson, the effective race leader on pit stops, so we'll see what he can do to find his way past Robert Henry. I've driven TCR quite a bit, and one thing I do know about this category is it's great racing, but it can be very tough to make a move stick. You have to be inch perfect on the brakes and make sure that you get the car rotated into the corner correctly in order to get it done. I don't think Hobson's going to be close enough for a move here at the final hairpin, but Pepperell taking the fastest lap back once more. This is certainly gearing up to be a great race in both of our categories. And Pepperell is a little bit further behind Lacassis than he was, but tell you what, we've still got 22 minutes of this race to go, and I think we're only just getting started in this battle.
Front paw racer?
Yeah, maybe.
Who's off the road that Gowans is just passing? Is that Shelley?
Yep. Edward Shelley has had an adventure in the first couple of turns here. Maybe ran deep, maybe got shoved wide. Not too sure exactly what happened. I'm sure we'll find out in a few moments' time. In fact, we will right now. This looks like something Edward Shelley did all by himself, just over-rotated it on the way into the corner. He got it gathered up, but a trip through the gravel trap allows Damon Mulqueen and Douglas Gowans through.
I think Shelley Beach is near Wollongong, New South Wales, if I've got my geography quite right. But apparently it's also in Andalusia, Spain, outside of Turn 1.
Yeah, evidently so. We'll see if Shelley can keep up. Obviously, you run into the gravel in these TCR cars, and the tyres do take a while to get back up to optimum grip, and the tyres are so important in these cars. You need to keep them clean, you need to keep them from overheating, and in the case of the rear tyres, you need to keep them from getting too cool. Very complicated car to drive these things, as Lacassis will finally get a valid fastest lap on the board. First driver officially in the 44.8s. Seems like Pepperell has been giving him a good run, but he's got a lot to play for here. So is Brenton Hobson as he has a look up the inside of Robert Henry. On the exit, Henry is going to get Hobson. He's going to keep himself in the fight here as the Synergy Sim Racing Audi Championship leader in the TCR class. Does he go for the move at turn one? He'll have a peek. He'll go for it. But has he gone too deep? Maybe just a little. Hips and shoulders his way past Robert Henry to get back into the lead.
I think that's the way to do it, right? You're well down the inside, but you're not going to let them over under you, and now you're ahead. You can maybe try to stretch away an advantage on your true rivals, Doug Gowans and Damon Mulqueen.
Yeah, exactly. Those are the drivers that Hobson is really racing right now. He needs to gain that gap. Unless, of course, there is another safety car, then that advantage will be solidly eliminated. Brady Baldwin still struggling to... Damon Mulqueen still struggling to get past Douglas Gowans here, but does he have enough for a fling up the inside at the hairpin? He's going to stay in line here. Gowans is putting on a pretty staunch defense. So staunch, in fact, that Edward Shelley is starting to catch up in the battle for third.
Consistently left-handers till that big right-hander comes up. Three different types of strategy unfolding in the TCR class right now, like Henry and Shelley, who haven't stopped, Hobson, Gowans, Mulqueen, who topped off a little bit of fuel, and then those other drivers, Bradbury and Banks, who came in a second time to really fill the container all the way up to the top.
Yeah, there's a lot to think about for the TCR category. Who is best placed right now? Well, I can tell you who's worst placed. It's Robert Henry and Edward Shelley. It's likely, considering how things are going, they're going to have to pit under green flag conditions, which means they'll lose a ton of time to everybody. Robert Henry, obviously very fast in the TCR class, but it doesn't mean much when you're off strategy, as up the inside goes Mulqueen on Gowans, then gives room. Good to see. Just enough space between the cars to negotiate this corner cleanly, and with the tighter line, Mulqueen will move through on the Hyundai Veloster.
Yeah, another matter of inches there, but just getting clear, preventing a switchback. Mulqueen gets ahead of Gowans there with Shelley, who's still managing to hold on, having gone off the track and let him through. Now still back to going with their pace. This is a very spicy GT4 lead battle right here, dropping Pignata just a little bit.
Yeah, I would even go so far as to say they're leaving Pignata behind at the moment. Both Lacassis and Pepperell have done laps in the 44.8s, but Matthew Pignata hasn't been able to do much than basically a 45.0 at this point. So they're consistently gaining the gap on him. And Pepperell and Lacassis are trading fastest laps at the moment. And see what the times are like here across the line here. Actually only 0.05 of a second faster as Russell Pepperell on that previous lap. The gap remaining at half a second for the lead. Lacassis losing time on the last two laps. But again, will Pepperell have it in him to not only make the pass, but make it stick? Because what we've noticed is every time so far Pepperell's gotten into the lead, Lacassis has taken it right back a lap or two later.
Yeah, the consistency's been mega in terms of the lap times for both of them, only really straying 0.1 of a second one lap to the next. So I start to think maybe Formula E style, being in second place here, you save a little bit more and you could either jump or attack later in the race here, because you're leaving everyone else behind, but you're not letting the leader get away, but haven't really been able to attack them or make any inroads. You'd start to think strategically at this point of the race.
Indeed. Craig Mason and Taylor Oakes will be battling over the 5th place here on track. At the moment, it seems like Taylor Oakes not quite able to match Mason's times there. Previous lap was about 0.2 of a second slower, but we've seen Taylor Oakes make some big moves before. He can certainly do it again. Meanwhile, have a look at that. Mulqueen has already gapped Gowans for third place in TCR, and Edward Shelley fancies a look. But remember, he's still committed to that later pit stop.
Yeah, Gowan's last lap just a little off the pace compared to going with Mulqueen as he was earlier.
Fastest lap goes back to Nick Lacassis. He's, I mean, you really can't put anything between Lacassis and Pepperell at the front of the field, can you? Seems like the gap has increased a little bit, but yeah, there's absolutely nothing between these guys at the moment. They are driving hard, and that's exactly what we like to see. Still waiting on pit stops for the majority of the GT4 field, though. So who's best placed on strategy right now? It's hard to say.
You're waiting on some of the GT4s to blink as well before you really have any idea quite how it all shakes out.
Looks like Oakes is getting a bit closer here to Mason. Bit of slipstream down into the hairpin. But it seems like Mason's just focusing on the exits here. He's keeping up the momentum. Nice to see. The Simblack's car has certainly been fast. For the moment, it seems like the Orbit Motorsport car is a little bit faster. Will Oakes be able to make up any time here in the final sector, though? This is probably one of the most difficult sectors of this track, and you see that Oakes just goes a bit deep, runs a little wide in that corner, and that gives the advantage right back to Mason.
Now you're at the limit flowing speed here, and you see just a couple little taps of the brake pedal to help the car rotate to get a little bit of movement, and Craig Mason seems to have done it just a little bit better.
There we go. Fastest lap again to Russell Pepperell. The pace is starting to really increase in the GT4 lead battle. They're both pushing hard over the curbs, aren't they? They're using every little bit they can. If anything, I think Pepperell might have gotten an off track just then with how much he was using that green painted concrete. Let's see who gets the best exit here out of the right-hander. Pepperell sticking a little tighter on the exit. It'll straighten up the car a bit earlier for him, but Lacassis continues to maintain the momentum here. Pepperell's just not close enough to make a move.
No, and it's really got to be thinking strategy in the long game at this moment as well, because you're now reaching some really critical points as far as, do you react, do you go early, and do you have just a little bit of tyre left to push if that's when it counts for an undercut or an overcut, something like that. Track temperature has just crept up a tiny bit as well as we've been going on, I think.
Yeah, it's up to 26 Celsius now. It did dip a short while ago, but yeah, it's been steadily climbing since then, starting to plateau. So you never know, we might see it drop again before the end of the race. Remains to be seen. Now, GT4 leaders still not going into the pits here. For the time being, it looks like both Lacassis and Pepperell will be committing to a late stop. I don't think either of them wants to be the one who blinks first.
Yeah, and you're still quite a ways away from really catching any TCR traffic in this one. Like you said, only realistically a 3-4 second a lap difference, GT4 to TCR. We had that safety car to bunch us up a little bit. Scott Griffiths has clearly got some problems there, but you want to run long in this clean air as a GT4, rather than maybe if you pit too early, you're ending up amongst those TCRs, and that could be a death sentence if your opponent then runs longer and overcuts you.
Yeah, well, actually, looking at looking at pit transit times, it's looking around about 30 seconds or so for a pit transit time around this place. And currently, Lacasas and Pepperell enjoy a 54-second gap over Brent and Hobson. So they could pit now if they wanted to and get away with it. But then they might face up against traffic in their own class that decides to stay out a little longer. That's the big challenge. And that's why in real-life motorsport, you have spotters looking at all of the gaps on track and telling you where the clear gaps are so that you don't lose all of that time. A lot of these guys don't have that luxury. Some of them are racing on their own, or if they do have spotters, they're also racing in the sim with them.
Yeah, all of this adds up to the fact that the low-risk choice right now is to keep running, because sure, you might be able to gain something stopping a little bit earlier than your rival, but there's also a significant chance from a number of factors that are difficult to foresee that it might cost you time, whereas you can foresee some of your risk in front of you if it's just clean racetrack.
Exactly right. Cassis ran a little wide there, as we do have our first green flag pitters in the GT4 class. It's Taylor Oakes and Peter Pavlovich that have decided to come in. Jordan Malcolm, having already pitted, is going to move past them. Whether or not they're going to have to do another pit stop before the end, those that pitted under the safety car, again, remains to be seen. 10.5 minutes left in the race, and it is crunch time. Now is the time you have to start thinking about strategy. Now's the time you have to start thinking about traffic. It looks like that's Griffiths up ahead of our GT4 leaders.
Yeah, just one lone car though, but maybe it makes them think about jumping before they're pushed. Taylor Oakes is out, and he's taken 10.8 seconds of fuel there and gotten out ahead of Linton Wills, while Pavlovic slots in just behind Wills in turn 2.
Interesting to see there that Pavlovich hadn't really gained all that much in the pit cycle as Griffiths jumps out of the way of our GT4 leaders. Very convenient place to have that happen. Griffiths just struggling at the moment there at the back of the TCR class. Hopefully he'll be able to get something together before the end, and maybe if there's an incident in front of him, he'll gain a few positions from that. Well, our GT4 leaders will know now that cars in their class have started pitting, but they're content once more to continue on. Does anyone else decide to throw a spanner in the works? No. Looks like both Pignata and Swan have decided to stay out as well. Meanwhile, the Iridium Sim Sports car of Alex Schuler facing off against Jordan Malcolm, who doesn't need to pit at the moment from what we can see. And there goes Schuler into the pit lane. Don't cut the inside too much, otherwise you will get an unsafe pit entry penalty. And it looks to me like Schuler has escaped that, but I do see a black flag for Craig Mason. It looks like he might have cut the pit entry a bit too fine.
Yep, I was just noting that as well for the 047 car. So there's a few ways you can do it. Either you cut too much, or you cut the grass as you cut across there, or you're just speeding as you cross the line. But this camera is going to tell us, is that
there you go,
a line too far?
It is. From what I saw in the V8 Vets broadcast last night, if you run over that white line on the inside of pit entry, you will get a black flag. So unfortunate there for Craig Mason, but he will take that penalty and lose a lot of time. I'm expecting him to be in the pits there for about a minute, having to serve that penalty. Well, we'll keep our eyes peeled on Russell Pepperell and Nick Lacassis at the front of the field. They're coming up to the end of the lap now, and with under 8 minutes remaining on the timer, surely now is the time to jump into the lane. Do either of them go for it? Lacassis will, but Pepperell decides to continue on. Will this have been the right decision for Lacassis?
Well, look at that ocean of clean track that he's got. So if there was any pace he had in reserve, now's the time to go, go, go. And then there's a chance that you see how much fuel Lacassis takes, and you go, all right, I'll take 1 second less than that. And that better be good, that better be enough, or maybe you've saved a little bit as you go. So you do have no real time loss from staying out as far as traffic or anything like that. And then you do have all of the information about Lacassis' stop to be able to react to cover it off.
11.5 seconds is the pit stop for Nicholas Lacassis. Now, will that have been enough fuel to get to the end? I would assume so. If anything, it might be a bit more than that. But Brenton Hobson still up behind Robert Henry here. Looks like Henry managed to find his way back past somewhere along the line. Maybe Hobson redressed the position after he muscled his way past, but Henry's in trouble here. Tripped through the gravel, through the penultimate corner. Hobson has to give him room to recover there, but now it's game on again, coming down the front straight. Henry still hasn't taken his compulsory pit stop. Neither has Edward Shelley. The TCR field is nowhere near cleansed just yet. Will Hobson jump up the inside here? He will not. He's going to hang back a little further. We're going to see, actually, how Henry got back into the TCR lead here. And from what I can see, it just looks like a textbook move up the
Hobson's
inside
mega
into
fuel
dry
saving.
sack.
Hobson's hit a real fuel-saving phase here. He's gone, hang on, how many laps is this race going to go? I don't want to have to stop again. These guys around me probably are. So, let's go very quietly.
Yeah.
The GT4 leader is on the lane, though, but yeah, I think that's what's happening there. Is Hobson's gone, hang on, I'm best off trying to save and stay out here than pitting again.
Yeah, so that tells me that the drivers that pitted once under the safety car probably don't have the fuel to get home.
What about like Batten catching Gowans, for example, knowing that Batten had one more lap of fuel on board? Gowans might be trying to make the same strategy Hobson's making work. And look at this.
Whoa.
Batten looks like he's hot knife through butter.
Yeah, Batten looking quick here. So Pepperell and Pignata both completing their stops here.
Long stop for Pepperell, really long stop.
Yeah, very long stop indeed. In fact, so long that it tripped my timing and only shows it as a 2-second stop for me. But yeah,
well, do you see he got jumped by Pignata and he's way behind Lacassis. So he even got jumped by a car that came into the lane 2-3 seconds after him.
So his actual pit stop wasn't too bad. It was actually faster than Lacassis's, but oh no, I think Pepperell pulled into the wrong pit box. I've just gone back to check his pit stop. He goes to stop in a stall and waits a few seconds and then pulls forward to another. I have no idea what's going on there for Russell Pepperell.
But clearly a mistake, a drama in the pit lane. We'll have another look at it. He was the race leader. This should have been routine. Cover off your rival. At worst, rejoin side by side with him. At best, take the race lead. But as he's gone to stop...
Okay, so he completes that stop there, but watch what happens next. For some reason, when he pulls away, he immediately stops again. I think he stalled the car. He stalled it. That's what happened. He had to get it refired.
So maybe come to a stop, neutral, fire it, rev it, pull first again. Okay. Wow.
Yeah, that's big for Russell Pepperell. That's a disastrous outcome for him. Could have been the race leader, especially with how quick his pit stop was. It all went wrong after the stop. Luke Swan is going to jump into pit lane from the TCR lead as Gowans is still fighting hard here with Garen Batten. Batten's still not able to get past here. Gowans is putting on a great defensive drive, and Robert Henry now down in 7th in TCR, having taken his pit stop. 6.6 seconds in the lane there for him. So at the moment, Damon Mulqueen, the leader of the cars to have pitted twice under safety car, is currently in 2nd place and looks to be chasing down Brenton Hobson. Took 0.6 out of him on the last lap.
Yeah, this is going to get super spicy, isn't it? I think drivers like Hobson were thinking, I'm taking a splash of fuel now, but I will have to stop again. And then sometime they realized, oh, those other guys aren't going to have to stop again that stopped underneath the safety car. Those guys who put in just a dash of fuel 1 lap later, suddenly in this really hot position compared to Hobson needing to save big time. That lap just then, yeah, a little off his best, while Mulqueen is starting to hit his straps.
Certainly
Similar
is.
in GT4 here, isn't it? Between Malcolm and Lacassis.
Yeah, it is actually. Malcolm, pitted under the safety car, currently holds the GT4 lead, but the question is, will he have to pit again? There's only 2 minutes remaining in the race, and considering the lap times here, I think it's going to be borderline whether we have 1 or 2 laps to go. I'm calling 2 just for the time being. It all depends on when Jordan Malcolm crosses the line. The white flag is not out, so we have 2 laps to go up at the front of the field. That's 2 laps that Jordan Malcolm is likely going to have to save fuel in his McLaren. Lacassis, though, has nothing holding him back.
So your leaders are doing laps in the 145s. There was a minute 50 on the clock when Malcolm crossed the line, and then kind of like a minute 45 when Lacassis crossed the line. So Malcolm staying out might have sent us, it's right on the border of sending us that lap longer, and that could be dramas for the TCRs as well, because even if Malcolm ends up needing to stop now, him staying out as late as he has definitely sent us 1 lap longer.
Yeah, certainly has. Well, in comes Linton Wills for a second stop here. He was not able to save to the end. Remember, Wills pitted at the same time as Malcolm under the safety car. So that will tell us something about whether or not Malcolm will be able to make it to the end. It's looking doubtful. The fight's still going on here between Robbie Bradbury and Stephen Banks as they make their way into the final corner here. They're 2 of the cars that pitted twice under the safety car. Robert Henry catching them, and actually quite fast as well. We'll have to wait and see what kind of lap times he can put on. There's only going to be 2 laps remaining here for the TCR field. Jordan Malcolm still holding off Nick Lacassis, but he's going to have to make 1 more circuit of Jerez to secure victory here. Does he have the fuel in the car?
That's going to be a really, really great question. What flag does Barney have in his hands right now? The white flag, sending them for 1 more. 4.4 more kilometers. Lacassis has taken more than a second out of Malcolm's lead the previous lap. He's going to need to do that and more now on the final lap.
Yeah, well, he's certainly done exactly that. He's taken another second out of Malcolm's lead. It's still on for third as well. Luke Swan finding his way past Matthew Pignata in the pit cycle with a 2-second faster pit stop. And Garen Batten still trying to find his way past Douglas Gowans for third in TCR. Gowans is putting on a fantastic defensive drive here. He's putting his car in all the right places. Batten, I think, is going to have to try something desperate if he wants to get past. Maybe a little hip and shoulder through the corner, but no, Gowans will hold fast.
Well, what a thrilling final lap it's shaping up to be. Only a few real overtaking opportunities left, and look at Malcolm realize he still needs to save, and that thing needs to come out of the final hairpin and not splutter at all on its way to the checkered flag if he's going to bring home a fuel-saving, early stop race win.
And this is the question. You see the Porsche creeping ever closer to the McLaren as they make their way to the end of the lap. And you can see that Malcolm is lifting and coasting into the corners. And it's a luxury here for Nicholas Lacassis that he's able to just fire it into every single braking zone. There's only 1 more to go, though. Who has it here? On the power for Jordan Malcolm. He's probably going to have to go defensive into the hairpin if he doesn't want Lacassis to get by him, and that's exactly what he's going to do. Lacassis briefly went to the inside there, but he might have made a mistake there. Probably should have committed to the outside. Out of the final corner, round goes Nicholas Lacassis, as Jordan Malcolm will take the win in GT4. Disaster for Nick Lacassis, the pole sitter here on the final lap. Luke Swan is going to make his way past into second place. Oh my lord, what a finish that is. Was not expecting that.
No, absolutely not. And then Luke Swan on the same fuel strategy as Jordan Malcolm comes through to take that second place. Just holds off Matthew Pignata, who was on the same fuel strategy as Lacassis. And so in the end, while it looked like the later stoppers really could have made it work, it just fell apart at the last hurdle, and your early stoppers came through first and second in GT4.
Yeah, they absolutely did. It looked like the right decision to pit under safety car, and miraculously, Brenton Hobson is going to be able to make it home for the TCR victory. We thought that he was in trouble in terms of fuel saving, but he is just going to creep across the line with barely any fuel left. Brilliant drive once again from the TCR championship leader. Hobbo seems to really like that Audi. Meanwhile,
What happened
Garen
last lap for Mulqueen and Batten?
Oh, yeah, what happened indeed? It looks to me like Douglas Gowans has fallen to 7th spot. We completely missed that. It's a podium for Garen Batten. And obviously Mulqueen's had some issues of his own, but yeah, I think that tight battle we were seeing between Gowans and Batten has erupted here. What happened to Gowans? Has he run out of fuel? Oh no! Okay. Well, that's awkward. It just seems to me that Gowans there, he had a poor exit and was trying to go defensive, but they just made contact. Wow. Big dramas here in GTC at Jerez, but in the end, it is Jordan Malcolm who takes victory after pitting under the safety car. Luke Swan and Matthew Pignata will finish on the podium. Pepperell still gets 4th in spite of his issues, and Lacassis will be classified 5th after what I'm sure he's going to be absolutely fuming over his mistake coming out of the final corner. Taylor Oakes, Alex Schuler, Peter Pavlovich, Linton Wills, and Mark Noble will round out our GT4 finishers. Craig Mason, unfortunately, wouldn't make it to the end after getting a penalty on pit entry. Cole Buchan not taking to the start.
There's my US registered medical helicopters in the background. Hopefully not needed for anyone in today's race, as Brenton Hobson ends up with a near 20-second lead over Damon Mulqueen, who I think had to hit a little bit of fuel saving. Garen Batten likewise as well, and then Stephen Banks, Robert Henry through to 4th and 5th there. Edward Shelley also picking up a late spot off of Douglas Gowans in 7th. And then Robbie Bradbury, last car on the lead lap in that class, as I suspect the GT4 leader might have split them a little bit and put Scott Griffiths the lap down and Simon Gorofsky 2 laps down. Brady Baldwin and Tyson Hanmer, both relatively early retirements, one of them in fact bringing out the safety car that defined the strategy of this race.
Yeah, and speaking of defining, Jordan Malcolm briefly joins us here for a chat. You came away with the win, Jordan, and it all came down to pitting early under safety car, but how much fuel did you have to save?
Yeah, it was close to 6 litres that I have to save, and shout out to Nicholas. That was he had the pace all day. He was super quick, and he probably would have got me. I coughed halfway down that straight.
Yeah, wow. It's an incredible battle between you two. Well, maximum points from this round of GTC. Obviously, you started in 3rd, so you would have been in the running anyway. But I suppose making the decision to pit early was what got you that in the end.
Yeah, exactly right. I knew, looking at my fuel calculator, that there wasn't too much to save. Like, it was a fair bit, but it was enough to save and still keep the pace up. So I decided at that moment I was going to do the opposite of whatever the front 2 had. I just didn't have the pace, so strategy was going to win me that, and I had to try something different, and thankfully it paid off.
Yeah, certainly did. Well, fantastic win for you, Jordan Malcolm. Floor is yours if there's anyone you'd like to give a shout out to before we let you go celebrate your victory.
Just shout out to you guys for the broadcast, everyone who was in chat, everyone at 1-9, and then everyone for good race. That was awesome.
Yeah, fantastic race here in the GT4 class, but in the TCR class, it once again belonged to Brenton Hobson. David Haynes stood by with him.
Well, what an exciting race for strategy for you guys.
Hello. Yes, that was an exciting strategy race in the end, wasn't it?
Your thoughts at that time of the early safety car, knowing either going to need to make a second stop or it's going to need to be a big save. Which one did you think it was going to be at that moment initially?
I knew it. I thought at the very moment that I pitted that it might have been the wrong call, but I was going to do it anyway because, you know, if it worked out, it was going to be way faster. So worst case, I'd have to pass some cars and try and get there on pace. But I thought that was the smarter way to go, just be on the shore side because I think, well, as it turned out, not having to stop again was definitely the quickest way to get it done. So luckily it worked out that way, although I didn't think that it was going to be so much of a fuel save until sort of after I got back to the lead and then realized that I was sort of over a lap short. So I had to go into the fuel save pretty hard for about the last 10 or 15 laps to get to the end.
From the driver's seat position, how aware are you of all the other strategies playing out? You're keeping an eye on who else pitted, who didn't, who you think's going to need to stop, and who you are and aren't worried about?
Well, yeah, I knew that the other guys that I was surrounding me needed to stop regardless. So I was sort of conscious of that. I knew that Damon was probably my nearest competition in that regard, and sort of just wanted to make sure I kept a good enough gap to him because he is capable of going very fast in these cars, and don't want to give him a chance to get in the battle if I could help it. So I was keen to make sure that I put in some good laps straight after the restart, get to the lead, make a gap, and then deal with the fuel from there if I had to, which as it turns out I did. And he was very ambitious. He thought there was going to be one lap less than I did. So he ended up, half a lap short with only 2 laps to go. So, I was lucky to be onto it early enough that I could save early enough in the stint to get it done more comfortably than him for sure.
Fantastic job. And the way that this circuit plays out, you didn't really have much of all at anything to do with the GT4s. They were sort of out front of you, but never quite gonna catch you and lap you around a circuit where the TCR can flow the speed a little better, I think.
Yeah, and just as well too, I think, because the cars are not that far apart on pace, like you said, and I was a little bit nervous in the practice session that if we ended up near them, it was going to be really awkward. I could sort of see some pretty dodgy, dives and stuff at the end of the straights to try and get moves done from a GT4 and a TCR car if it came to it. So probably lucky that it didn't happen. I was a little bit concerned that some of those guys who had to pit that didn't stop at the safety car in the GT4 field might have ended up near us, and we would have had to deal with that. But I'm not quite sure how it all played out really there, but it turns out they weren't around me. So that's all I was worried about, and yeah, thankfully so, I think.
Well, keeping it clean was the winning strategy also in TCR, so congrats on that.
Yeah, cheers, thank you.
And that's going to bring things to an end for our coverage of the GTC here in V8SCOPS Supports for 2024. But don't go away. We've got the V8s coming up here, and we are already in the qualifying session. This is going to be a fantastic category. Always has been. Plenty of hard racing to come here, David. We'll go briefly to a break here on SimSpeed TV, and as the cars make their way around in qualifying, we'll update you on their positions when we come back. You're watching V8SCOPS Supports.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series in officially licensed cars engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. visit iRacing.com.
You're watching SimSpeed TV, the 2024 V8SCOPS Support Series, round 4 here from Circuito de Jerez. Fantastic strategy-defining race in the GTC category, but now we move to the V8s. Once again, if you're just joining us, I'm Reese Gardner. David Haynes is with me in the comms box, and tell you what, David, if that GTC race is anything to go by, I'm really looking forward to the fire-breathing V8 monsters. It seems we do not have David Haynes just yet, so I'll continue to blather on until he returns. Looking forward to this track, providing some more fantastic racing in the V8s category. When Jerez was first used for V8SCOPS last year, I was blown away by the quality of the racing and just how difficult, deceptively difficult this track is. We take another look at it here. In the Jerez region of Spain, famous of course for producing sherry, and Jerez de la Frontera is certainly a mecca for racing as well. This place is known as a motorcycle circuit. It's one of the premier circuits for motorcycle racing in the entire world, and so much of a challenge is being set for the drivers here, especially considering turn 11 so fast. We've seen plenty of problems there in the past. We might see more to come. But we'll continue on with the V8s category very shortly. The drivers are currently halfway through qualifying at the moment, and we'll have a 40-minute race coming up here with one compulsory pit stop required. Have to take 2 tyres at least in that pit stop. Live race control and manual safety cars as per usual. Matt Haywood is the one on top of the V8 standings for Team Simblacks Racing by quite some margin over Joe Mahoney and Aaron Gilbert, the reigning series champion. But Gilbert's not that far behind Mahoney. We'll have to wait and see if he can get that momentum going here in the early part of the season. It's also close between Gavin Cox and Henry King, Aaron Gilbert and Dan Stevens' teammates. It will certainly be a tight battle between those two making their way out onto the circuit. David, looking forward to V8 racing at Jerez, always turns it up. And currently Joe Mahoney on provisional pole by 0.8 of a second.
One always wonders if V8s is going to go full V8s in a 40-minute race. Certainly a circuit that requires flowing a lot of speed and some cars that it's not quite their strong point as far as the suspension and the differential and all of that is set out. Man, has it gotten a little toastier on circuit.
Certainly has. Reached a high of about 26 degrees in the GTC, but here in the V8s we're looking at 44 degrees Celsius with a fair amount of wind coming from the west. So we'll see how that affects car behavior here, but that tells me that this is going to be very much a tyre saving race. Of course, we talk everyone's ears off about the tyre strategy in these cars. It doesn't matter if it's the current gen on iRacing or the previous gen on iRacing, which are these ones. The tyres don't last that long, and that's in terms of pace. There is a pace drop-off after about 10 or 15 laps, but the drivers say that the cars feel pretty much the same. It's just a case of extracting that lap time, saving the tyres for a late move if you need to.
Not like a current Porsche Cup car where a meatball flag gets thrown on you because you mechanically wear down the tyres past the wear marks and there's only 3-4% tread left come the end of some of those stints. So there's quite a number of drivers that appear to have struggled to have set clean laps in this qualifying. And I think it looks like Aaron Gilbert remains one of them.
Yeah, indeed. Aaron Gilbert's been having trouble so far in the session getting a representative lap time down, so we'll see what he can do.
just wondering if it's turn 3 or if it's somewhere else noticeable that the off-tracks are coming in qualifying. I mean, obviously, all of these corners suggest you could run a little bit wide and get yourself in trouble, but to go this far into the qualifying session without a lap suggests there's like a sneaky little one that's sort of sneaking up on them. They expect it to be a bit of track they can use, but it's more harshly enforced than you'd expect from the driver's seat.
Yeah, indeed. Have to wait and see on that. Aaron Gilbert's fastest lap time was a 1 minute 40.8 in practice, and that would have only been good enough for P5 in the practice times. Gilbert, of course, is one of the fastest drivers in this category. Historically, he's been the most successful driver in the V8s category, so it's interesting to see
Lock
him
up and
so
wide.
far off the mark. Yeah, indeed. He's gone very wide there. He will likely have time for one more lap after this one, but considering how hot the track is, will he even commit to it?
So there's a few more drivers that didn't have qualifying times that have got him now. You're just at 5 drivers, including Aaron Gilbert, who don't have a valid qualifying lap at all. Car gets squirrely out the exit there. Dylan Gray moves up to 5th. Aaron Gilbert gets to the timing line, and does it stick? It does. Sends him up to the 3rd row.
Yeah, 6th place, but now down to 7th. He's been demoted by Dean Alessi. Sean Slater going for a bit of an adventure there in the gravel trap. No, neither is that one for that car in the background. Joe Mahoney, it looks like lining up for one final lap here. See if he can extend the margin for pole position, although I would argue he doesn't really need to, because he's got a 6/10 lead over Richard Mayer at the moment. Regardless, nice opportunity here to see a lap on board around Jerez before we go racing. Checkered flag is out in the session. Mahoney goes a little deep there at turn 2, and I think he might back out of the lap after this one, but let's see what he does through turns 3 and 4. Nice and stable. You don't want to be going too far beyond the curbs there, but it looks like he has indeed backed out of this lap now. He thought he could try and improve one final time, but not so.
It's a whole handful of cars, and their qualifying is done now. Richard Mayer not quite yet in the Commodore.
Yeah, let's see if Richard Mayer can improve on P2 at the moment. 1 minute 40.6 is his fastest time.
No, because he's just dropped 6/10 in that sector, having dropped 5/10 in the first sector. I think qualifying's done for Richard Mayer. You've got to look as far as sort of Troy Allen 8th or Matt Haywood 11th or Henry King 10th to find some personal best sectors. So Haywood could still improve from here. So too could Henry King, who's in a pretty similar piece of racetrack to him.
Well, Matt Haywood will come across the line. 41.8 the time to beat, and it will be a 41.5 for Matt Haywood. That gives him one spot starting
Henry
in
King's
the top
not going to
10.
improve because he is currently a DRS board on the exit of the final corner.
Testing out his shape-shifting capabilities, potentially. Craig Mason will promote himself up into 15th place. Very nicely done indeed. But that looks like everything is concluded, and we just need to let the clock run out before we go through the grid for the V8s race here at the Circuito de Jerez. All up, 21 cars set lap times in that session, and Sean Slater was unable to get a time on the board. So this is the grid then. Joe Mahoney will start on pole position. Richard Mayer, half a second back in the Sudspeed Autosport Commodore. Gavin Cox, the best middle finger racing car, starting 3rd alongside Sean Vandermeulen. And Dylan Gray is going to start in 5th place alongside Dean Alessi. Aaron Gilbert, the reigning champion of the series, 3rd in the standings this season, starting alongside Troy Allen. And then Tyson Hanmer and Matt Haywood will round out the top 10, Haywood making that late improvement.
It moved him ahead of Henry King, who'll start from 11th alongside Colin Bruns. And then with Dan Mirko and Dion de Graaf on the row behind them. Love the little retro stylings for de Graaf there. And then Craig Mason and Dan Stevens are 15th and 16th on the grid here. They got Peter Pavlovich and Stephen Banks on the row behind them. Bit of Pacific Esports Racing teammates side by side, even if it is a Commodore against a Falcon. And then Isaac Edwards and Blake Fitzpatrick are 19th and 20th after that qualifying session.
Simon Vella, the last car to set a time in qualifying. Sean Slater and Hayden Green will take to the start, but they didn't set times. So waiting to see what their ultimate pace is going to be. But the field now filing onto the front stretch here at the Circuito de Jerez, and a lot of them will be hoping to be standing on that very podium at the end of this night of racing. Standing start in the V8s category, so the challenge is putting down that 600 plus horsepower without getting too much wheel spin, without stalling the car. Remember, in V8SCOPS competition, the ignition and starter are manual. So if you stall, you need to have those buttons mapped. Otherwise, you are gone. You are done. I'm interested to see what kind of start Mahoney will get.
Pit lane start for Dion DeGraff for qualifying interference. So he won't be lining up out of 14th. He'll be lining up out of pit exit.
Yes, and that was a qualifying infringement with the number 23 of Troy Allen. So obviously getting in the way there at some point. We'll have to wait and see how far Dion DeGraff advances in this 40-minute race, which is starting right now. Revs are rising. The fire-breathing monsters take to the racetrack. Joe Mahoney versus Richard Mayer on the front row. And we are away. That's a big puff of smoke from Mahoney. Not a good start for him, but have a look at the Commodore of Sean van der Meulen. He's going to rocket himself up to second place by the time they get to the first turn, and he's going to try around the outside of Mahoney. It's not going to work, but they'll maintain side by side on the way to turn one. Mahoney a bit earlier on the brakes. He will keep the lead as it's 3 wide behind. Dylan Gray sneaking in between Richard Mayer and Gavin Cox to get up into the top 3.
Couple big winners already so far, but you see how they're struggling off the start here. A couple of locked breaks through the tight stuff like turn 2. Van der Meulen, great launch. Dylan Gray, great launch. Joey Mahoney from that dominant pole position, still leading us away.
Indeed, he might have spun up the wheels on the initial start, but he's gotten up to speed very quickly, but probably not quick enough for Sean van der Meulen, who's going to try up the inside. There's an incident behind. Off the circuit is Dean Alessi. He ultimately locked up and I think made contact with the cars ahead. Emerges back onto the racetrack in a safe enough manner. It's right in the middle of an angry pack of cars here on lap 1. The big challenge is surviving as Dylan Gray is now up the inside of Van der Meulen. Richard Mayer struggling to put the power down. It seems like no one wants to be second at the moment.
Alessi got too deep into the braking zone and he took himself off to avoid running up the back of someone. Lost a couple of positions for it, but appears to be undamaged. There's a couple of bulls charging up through the field after that chaotic qualifying. Dylan Gray obviously one of them. Matt Hayward also up 3 spots. Colin Bruns up 3 spots. Daniel Stevens making 5. So already on this opening lap, some big movements, and they suggest that not only are these cars chaos off a race start, but that qualifying wasn't completely representative of everyone's race pace.
Yeah, to say nothing of Sean Slater's move up through the field, up 6 spots. Fantastic job from him as the Jinx Shifters car of Henry King trying to make his way past Stephen Banks as Hayden Green, who started at the back of the field having trouble. Slater's in trouble, so is Simon Vella. It seems there's been a problem for him at the first turn there. Not sure exactly what happened to Slater though. There's a lot going on right now. And it's going to take a while, I think, before the race has really settled in. Change for third. Richard Mayer getting past Sean van der Meulen, who seems as... That's not van der Meulen, is it? Who's just gone for a bit of a run through the gravel there.
Slater again. So having gone forward, he's going backwards, and he had no qualifying time. So I won't give credit for positions gained to anyone who didn't qualify.
Yeah, indeed. Well, out of the hairpin we come, and one of the MFR Commodores slow on the exit there. It looks like that might have been maybe Dan Stevens, who's trying to chase down Troy Allen, but we keep our eyes peeled on the battle for the top 4. This is just magnificent, the racing that we're seeing so far. Dylan Gray is safe in second. Joe Mahoney is certainly safe in the lead for now, but at the moment, Richard Mayer, Van der Meulen, Aaron Gilbert, Gavin Cox and Matt Haywood all trying to sort each other out here. This is a replay of the initial start here for the number 37 of Dan Mirko, and looks like he didn't get off to a start at all. That resulted in a bit of a crush behind him, and the Pacific Esports cars having to take to the grass there to make their way past him. Well, Mahoney has gotten off to the best start possible. Fastest lap so far, 40.7. Not bad for just off the line.
Yeah, and now starting to blaze away from the rest of the field. Front runners stretching out through the middle of the pack, though, still insane in places, that's for sure. And no one's been to pit lane yet, so not for damage, not for any early strategy call or anything like that. Compared to the cars we've just seen earlier, the strategy is built a lot more around the tyre life than just the fuel number in these cars, if you want to do that.
Well, Matt Haywood's going to try the move here on Gavin Cox into dry sack, and Cox will let him have it, and I think that'll be one of quite a few more positions to be gained for Matt Haywood, who seems to have his race pace sorted out. He's up 4 spots now. Just a fantastic pace there from the Sim Blacks. Number 47. His next target is, of course, Aaron Gilbert, who hasn't quite been able to keep up with Van der Meulen and Mayer. Richard Mayer has had a couple of wobbles in these first couple of laps, but he's pretty much instantly gotten himself into a rhythm here, and he's not exactly losing much time to Dylan Gray right now. Gray may have gained 4/10 on him on the last lap. I think it'll be a lot less this time around. Oh no, Troy Allen in the gravel trap.
Losing a whole heap of positions as he's ended up wide in the penultimate corner, and now just getting back online.
Indeed he has. Well, it looks like just a small trip through the sand pit here for Troy Allen, and it was just understeer that got him here. Couldn't get it turned in, and there were other cars trying to make their way past. Those are his teammates who were trying to find their way past, and so Allen, I think, doing the courteous thing and jumping out of the way so as not to cause some intra-team drama. Well, Dylan Gray has gotten off to a great start here, hasn't he? He's actually running equal on pace with Mahoney right now. This is really good race pace from the man who started in P5.
Yeah, and Richard Mayer can't go with him because he's just been wide and then had a slide at the exit of the previous corner. So struggling for the consistency right now. The first and second are really slipping in too comfortably at the moment.
Yeah, Gray obviously the slower car, but only by a little bit. There's definitely potential here for him to catch Joe Mahoney in the pit cycle if he plays his cards right. But a little bit of a lock-up into the corner there for Gray. We'll keep going though, as Haywood now facing off against Gavin Cox once again. It seems like Gavin isn't willing to let Matt get away with this. Number 34 of Dean Alessi trying to make up further positions as well. He's down 7 spots from where he started. Should be way further up the field, but now he's got an entire pack of cars to negotiate here, not least of them Henry King, who we know has great pace in these cars. Many podiums, a couple of wins in the V8s category over the years, but it seems like the Team Jinx Shifters cars aren't as quite on the ball as they've been in previous seasons.
Yeah, and once you've lost a handful of spots, it is tough to get them back through the pack like this. I think Leon DeGraaf qualified 14th, started from that pit lane, hasn't really made any progress from the 22nd right now. She's in 22nd, why does that graphic still say 14th? It apparently doesn't like people starting from the pit lane, so there we go. It's been a little confused by the starting procedure.
Whoa! Slater, he's had a lot of adventures today, hasn't he? And he's going to have to almost went wide there to let Isaac Edwards by, but Isaac will stick in line for the time being and go for the move at a corner that's more convenient. The hairpin here And even then, he decides not to go for it, just allows Slater to continue on. Well, maybe Isaac is thinking, I've seen Sean making a few mistakes so far. He's probably got another couple in his back pocket, and I might be able to find my way past there. Interesting to note that the track temperature has cooled from qualifying, so there might be a little bit more tyre life at stake for these guys.
Yeah, what's really important is the top right of that info box where it says 4:40 p.m. So you think, okay, how much hotter can the track really get after 5 p.m? It will cool off a little bit as we go. Does that lend a little bit of favour then towards an earlier stop?
Yeah, interesting point. Maybe it will, but I think the drivers will just be driving to the numbers that they have, and if they see signs that the track is going to drop further, then maybe they will come in. All right, Vermilion at number 18 of Tyson Hanmer making his way past Gavin Cox on the way into turn 2. Looks like Gavin ran a little bit deep in the first corner there, which is very easy to do. This track is so deceptively simple, isn't it? It looks like an easy enough track from the air, but once you start actually lapping around it, especially in a car like this, it's anything but.
Got these changes of direction in lots of places, don't you? Or then just sort of continuous long corners, and you're leaning on the outside tyres, you're putting heat into them, and your traction is tough, especially when you're side by side and you're under some kind of pressure like this. You're seeing a lot of guys get just a little too eager on the throttle when they're in situations like this, cracking a little bit of a slide, because you don't want to be patient with power, but you've got to be.
Yeah, and decidedly patient enough with the power was Stephen Banks there. He's just made his way past Colin Bruns, Henry King, fully chasing these two. It seems like the MFR cars are now having some troubles with their momentum and being able to keep it going through the corners. Banks seems to be having some issues of his own. King, I think, just driving under the limit here. He knows how warm the track is. He knows that he has to preserve something, and he can't be affording to go for these kamikaze moves early on. King is a very wise old head in Australian sim racing. Knows exactly what to do in these circumstances, but the defense from Banks continues, and King is going to take advantage and try and get up the inside of Colin Bruns, but remain in line on the way into the first corner.
Whole variety of different lines on show. That one is a squiggly one.
Yeah, a little bit too squiggly for Colin Bruns, but again, it seems Banks is just having trouble with locking up into the corners here. He's been running deep almost every time I've seen him. Just needs to back off a tiny bit here, brake a little bit earlier, focus on the exits. That's what's going to gain you time around here.
Still had not a single car hit pit lane, but you'd imagine somewhere in the middle of the race, trying to slice it up evenly so that you're never caught adrift on very, very old tyres. You've always got at least something to work with in most phases is the way that you would go. So the middle of the race in about 8 minutes time. There or thereabouts, but some will probably want to go earlier if they think they're in a bit of traffic. They could undercut and then save their tyres sufficiently to hold that position. Cars that come to mind for me in that camp might be Alessi, Sean Slater, something like that.
Yeah, and especially in this pack, I'd be expecting more than a few drivers to try and undercut, probably King, because he's obviously looking faster than Bruns and Banks, but just isn't able to get alongside them when the time comes. So maybe an early pit stop will be on the cards for Jinx Shifters number 52. Don't see anyone else coming for the pits so far, but yeah, you're right. If you're up the front, best thing to do would be to run as long as you can, as Dion de Graaf has redress ordered by race control for contact with Sean Slater on lap 6, and I get the feeling that's one of the reasons that we've seen Slater off the track a few times in this race already.
So we'll have a look at it. De Graaf in the Sim Blacks car, getting a little bit up the inside, but late up the inside on Sean Slater.
Yeah, Slater running a bit deep in the corner before was gathering it up, and de Graaf thought the inside was open, but Slater was back on track by the time he was there and had every right to turn into the corner. So that will be the way it goes for them. Meanwhile, Richard Mayer having an issue of his own and going a bit deep in the fast right-hander coming onto the back stretch. That's the reason why he is now behind Sean van der Meulen. Van der Meulen in third place at the moment, and looking good, I have to say. Both he and Mayer, they've been driving reasonably consistently. Mayer maybe a little bit less. We've seen a couple more mistakes from him, but what this has done is it's allowed Aaron Gilbert to potentially have another shot at a podium here, to say nothing of Matt Haywood, who's still lurking in the background.
Yeah, suddenly third place is getting all spicy, isn't it, between Van der Meulen and Mayer, bringing a couple of other drivers in who think they might stand a chance of it. So as much as first and second are starting to get away, there is really good racing in a whole bunch of other places, and this third place is one to watch as well. You're within sort of half a second of someone. You really then got to think your strategy through as well as just how am I going to keep my tyres under me better, and how am I going to outrace these guys on pace.
Well, replay here for the 216 of Peter Pavlovich. Looks like a bit of an issue there for that's Craig Mason up ahead of him, and well, that will be the move done there for Pavlovich, taking advantage of that mistake. And Mason currently doesn't have any boot lid as things stand, though you know, you can finish a race without it. Seems like that rear wing isn't really worth much in the end.
Not to be confused with Craig Mazin, American screenwriter, producer and director, known for HBO's miniseries Chernobyl.
Yes, indeed. Very good series, that. I should watch it.
Oh, and The Last
sometime.
of Us as well, apparently. So.
Oh, okay.
I wish I could draw some kind of connection here to the lack of rear wing, but I've got nothing.
Might you say that the rear end of Mason's car is looking a little apocalyptic?
Yeah. It's a little
It's a bit of a stretch.
battle wagon.
Yeah, a bit of a stretch from my end, but you know, I try my best to make it work. Joe Mahoney at the front of this field, still showing he has so much pace on the rest of this field. 41.4 is his last lap time. Compare that to 42.3, 42.3 for Graham van der Meulen. Mayer, though, back into the 1 minute 41s himself. So it's probably not over between Mayer and van der Meulen, as the 37 will have a bit of an issue here. No, I think, is that... No, that's not the redress. That's Craig Mason again, who's having a bit of run-in with Dan Mirko, and, well, they complete it all cleanly. Oh, I've just seen something big happen for Hayden Green. He almost cleaned up the race leader. Green has been having trouble from the outset of this race. You see him touring on the grass there by the side of the circuit, but the dry sack hairpin, he locked up and almost ran into Joe Mahoney. This is the replay on the bottom of the screen. So he pulls over to let Mahoney go, and then, unfortunately, the moment he gets on the brakes, the fronts just lock up, and I think Mahoney saw him coming, and yet he turned out just to allow him to run across the racetrack. So the race isn't entirely drama-free for our leader.
You always got to check over your shoulder, apparently. Yeah, wow, that would have been a big moment in terms of its consequences and also perhaps its farcicality.
Yeah, indeed. Mahoney will be counting his lucky stars that it didn't result in something worse. Good heads-up driving.
Busy.
From it. Does seem that way. We do have two cars on pit lane, Hayden Green, of course, and Henry King, the first of our runners on the lead lap to make their way into the pits. So I did call it earlier that King might have gone for the undercut strategy. Looks like that presumption was correct. Question is, how much is he going to gain from it? He did have some clear air ahead of him, but he'll have to nail this pit stop if he really wants to make it work.
I make note that this pack for third is getting just a little bit closer to Dylan Gray as well. So Van der Meulen leading it. He's had good consistency. Richard Mayer, I think I've seen slightly less consistency out of, but his best laps are better. 3/10 quicker than Van der Meulen in his best. And then Aaron Gilbert and Matt Haywood showing a little bit more consistency. So if they find Dylan Gray in a weak moment, they're not that far behind. You can see he's just at 3 seconds. More like 4 seconds up the road from Van der Meulen and Mayer, who are chipping away at him sometimes.
Yeah, Gray, of course, was very fast in the early stages of the race, but he might have burnt through the best of his tyres early on. The leader is on his 11th lap, and that's about the point where you expect the tyres to really start going off in terms of pace. Doesn't look like any takers from this pack for the pit lane, but Henry King has emerged in 21st place, and that's in a good amount of clear air. Beautiful, nice clear track for Henry King. You can't even see the next car other than that little dot in the distance.
You just drive smooth right now. Drive 2/10, 3/10 of a second per lap underneath what the tyres will give you. Hold on to them. Don't get them sideways. Don't overuse them. A few others are in now as we're just approaching that halfway point of this race.
Yeah, so Gavin Cox, Stina Lessie, Craig Mason and Blake Fitzpatrick all making their way into the pits here. And quickest of them looks to be Craig Mason, only 12.6 seconds stopped. Henry King stopped 13.3, but he'll very likely get all of them here on the way out of pit lane, and he is well clear of the MFR car at the front of that train.
That's a new set there, Gavin Cox. Don't go locking him up too hard in turn 2. Oof.
Yeah, pushing a little bit too hard in the early stages. It looks like Mayer has lost out a bit here. Both Gilbert and Haywood have gotten past him when we weren't looking. So maybe it's almost time for Richard Mayer to make his way into the pits and try and undercut. He'll have to hope that they don't pit around him. This happened on the exit of turn 1 here. It looks like Mayer just went a bit too deep and had some trouble getting the power down. Gilbert slipped through and Haywood said, "Okay, mate, you want to leave the door open? I'll walk through it as well."
Yeah, once one was going through, I think it was easy for the second to do it, and Richard Mayer drops back just a little bit. Aaron Gilbert pits from this group, while those we were just talking about, Mayer, Haywood, Van der Meulen, etc., all carry on. And Stevens also in as well.
Okay. So it looks like Stephen Banks and Colin Bruns are going to be joining them in here as well.
First time past pit entry after the halfway point of the race. It just makes sense if you're not, trying to cook up some strategy or goal hang for a safety car or anything like that.
Yeah, I think if you're in the mid-pack and you don't stand much of a chance of gaining otherwise, you might as well pit at the halfway point. Henry King completing his next lap here and see how far up he advances. He'll come out just next to Stephen Banks, who is getting up to speed as we speak. The leader of the cars that are pitted is Aaron Gilbert, and it looks like about 11 seconds back to Henry King from there.
Yeah, and he's a good chance to undercut that whole group, Van der Meulen, Haywood, Mayer, Hanma, etc. for the podium. So Aaron Gilbert, he hasn't, pulled the trigger too early and given himself like a false hope undercut where he'll just be left adrift later on. But he should have some good positioning. Stevens got some problems there, or is he just
I think that might have been I think that might have been cutting the inside of pit entry again, considering how long that stop was. Definitely a black flag involved in that, as it looks like someone's making a move into the pit lane here. It is Sean Van der Meulen from third spot.
Look at the battle.
Interesting between Mayer, Haywood and Hanma. Tyson Hanma, where did he come from?
I would pit instead of being in this. My goodness,
Yeah.
That's a good strategy, because now Haywood gets it sideways with Mayer there, and Tyson Hanma has just caught them all as they've been battling, starting to run out of tyres. He might have just saved a little better.
So we'll get an eye in on what happened to Stevens, and he was over the white line. You can't do that at Jerez. you need to be careful of the inside of pit entry. Wonder how many more drivers will see fall victim to that this weekend. Remember, this isn't the only racing action we've got on SimSpeed TV this weekend. V8SCOPS round 4 is going to be taking place on Sunday, starting at about 4 p.m. if you're in the west, 6 p.m. if you're in the east. So make sure to mark that down in your calendars. These three still continuing on. I'm surprised that they've left it this long to come into the lane, because they will definitely fall behind the likes of Henry King and Sean Van der Meulen.
Gilbert's the one I think they need. Van der Meulen and Gilbert are the ones that they're losing a little bit of time to right now.
Yeah, it seems that way. Gavin Cox, fresh out of pit lane, was the fastest car on track that time by 1:41.6. And there's been a problem for Joe Mahoney. I just saw that his last lap time was about 5 seconds slower than what he's been running. What happened to him here? Just locked up the rears on the way into the final hairpin. And,
no, you meant to do that after you take the checkered flag, my man.
Yeah, a little bit too early for that. Mahoney's decided, okay, it's time to come in. Dylan Gray decides the same, but Haywood and Mayer will continue on. I mean, they're committing to going long here. I mean, they're going to be fast in the later stages, but I think the undercut's just too powerful in these conditions.
Yeah, and while passing is possible, it's not easy here, isn't it? So
no,
definitely other tracks where passing is easier. I mean, I think even like Road America or anything else where you've got much more longer straights more commonly than here. You got a long straight on the back straight. They're only just, getting up to a decent amount of speed by the end of the pit straight. It's not the longest pit straight. And then you've got quite a bit of, flowing, I wouldn't say fiddly, but just flowing stuff like here.
Yeah, indeed. Good stuff between Dylan Gray and Joe Mahoney here. Gray gaining a lot in the pit cycle here. 2 seconds quicker than Mahoney through the pits, and Mahoney lets him go. Something's gone on here for Joe Mahoney. He's got a black flag. Did he speed on pit exit?
We looked unassailable, and near 10-second lead. No one could touch him. Then he's had a lockup and a spin in the final corner. And then something's gone wrong with the pit stop for Joe Mahoney. Suddenly, Dylan Gray is in the best box seat.
Yeah, he certainly is. I'm just looking at Joe Mahoney's pit exit, and yeah, it looks like he got off the limiter a bit too early. Oh, that's so frustrating for Mahoney. He was dominant so far in this race, but it's all gone wrong for him in the space of 2 laps. He's going to have to come back into the pit lane and drive through the pits, but don't cut the inside of the corner here. Stay wide of the white line. That's exactly what he does on pit speed limiter now, and he'll fall down the order as Mayer and Pavlovich will take their pit stops. That just leaves Matt Haywood yet to make his way into the lane. Tyson Hanmer with the Super Drifto Champion des coming into the pit lane.
That's legal. That's a safe pit entry. Cutting the white line isn't. No, not allowed. The comedy is from the way he enters scene on the fixed camera angle. But yeah, I do like we've got the third umpire's camera angle for deciding what is and isn't a no ball.
Yeah, exactly. I really like that camera angle. It's great. Well, Matt Haywood on his lonesome out there. Only car that hasn't pitted yet. As we look at Mahoney's second pit entry. Well, just making sure he's not touching the line there. Stay half a car width wide.
You've got the third brake light that flashes, the rain light flashes when the pit lane speed limiter is engaged, and you could see he was halfway around that hairpin when he engaged it, and he's still parked in his box. Now he gets going. You see the flashing light for the pit lane speed limiter. He was on it so early on his way in for that second time, and I'm sure he was off it so late. Does not want another penalty. The penalties are all cleared. He's going to be back in the race, but he is 20th.
And with only 12 minutes on the clock, there's no chance that he'll get back to the lead from here. If it was an endurance race, then you'd think that maybe it'd be half a chance, but in a sprint race like this, absolutely not. So Joe Mahoney no longer a factor in the battle for the win here, but factors in the battle for 13th, Blake Fitzpatrick and Troy Allen. They've got a lot to play for here. Troy Allen with the freshest set of tyres, about to complete the 3rd lap on this stint. Looks like Fitzpatrick about to complete the 5th lap on this stint. It's not much of a difference, only 2 laps between the ages of the tyres here, as that's someone getting up to speed there. Looks like a Falcon. I think it might be Craig Mason, considering that there's no boot lid.
Yeah, someone without a boot lid.
Yeah, I think it's Mason. Yeah, looks like it was another problem for him in the hairpin. Makes his way through, but unfortunately spinning up the rears on exit. That's one place where a rear wing might have helped.
Yeah, it does appear to have saved from doing too much damage, but it ended up in a lazy little slide, and now he's right in front of this battle that's bearing down on him.
Yeah, this is tough here for Craig Mason. Tyres will be super hot after that spin, as Henry King has to give up the position to Stephen Banks coming into dry sack. He's now in a Pacific Esports Racing sandwich with Peter Pavlovich trying to chase him down.
2, in fact, I think. Was it? No, maybe it was further around.
Yeah, just ahead of here. So, yeah, we're in the middle to end of the lap now. And have a look at this. Interesting stuff between PER and MFR. Number 23 trying to make the moves as Matt Haywood finally makes his move into the pits. Dylan Gray promoted back into the lead. Aaron Gilbert up into 2nd spot. Tell you what, Gilbert is looking pretty quick. The gap for the lead is still somewhere around 5 seconds, but if Gilbert can keep it up here, he'll chase down Gray, as Mason has to go for pit lane. Looks like he's gotten a black flag to his name somewhere. Incident limit we're hearing. He's exceeded the incident limit.
I was sus on that pit entry as well too, to be honest. So
yeah,
it's not been a great one for Craig Mason in the V8s. It's a good race up front. I mean, I think the timing of the stop from Aaron Gilbert was really, really good. He jumped a whole bunch of guys.
Oh, yeah, too much to the inside there, I think. So Mason will have ever more of a problem there. Double black flag. Where has he come out? Well, he took his drive-through, but he doesn't have a black flag to his name, interestingly. Maybe
I would take a double black espresso, but not a double black penalty, thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Or a Smirnoff double black. That'd be nice on a Friday night.
Yeah. If I wanted to be like 19, but yeah.
Yeah. Oh, no. Oh, all right. Okay, this has brought our attention back to the race, hasn't it? Troy Allen versus Blake Fitzpatrick. And Allen has gotten past there, but not without a little bit of drama in this battle for what is now 12th, and he's harassing the back of Troy Allen is Blake Fitzpatrick. I mean, no matter where you look, there's just intensity here in the V8s. How on earth did this happen? So he was up the inside at turn 4, but not enough overlap. And
that's the first little hello.
Yeah.
And then he hits, return call again. So it's on speed dial. Okay, 2. Can I get 3? Can I get 3? Any higher bids than 3? I think we do get 3.
Yeah, well, doesn't look like it. Unfortunately, you've lost that one, David. But
didn't meet reserve, unfortunately.
No, who's that going off the track there? Commodore. Looks like that's Hayden Green, who's been having a very difficult night, and it looks like he's gotten a black flag for incident limit as well. Meanwhile, here's Matt Haywood trying to get 4th place back on fresh tyres up the inside of Gavin Cox. The MFR Falcon has to delay turn in a little to allow the Simblacks Falcon past. And Matt Haywood, with the freshest tyres in the field, is going to now potentially have a run at Richard Mayer in these last 7 minutes, but he'd probably have to gain something like 7 or 8 tenths a lap every lap to the end. I don't know if he'll be able to do that.
Yeah, so you're seeing a really, really big difference of tyre grip there, 1 lap old versus 7 lap old tyres. But as he goes further up the field, he's only got 2 or 3 laps advantage on a handful of those other cars. And here's King, 8 lap old tyres, trying to hold on, but you see they don't quite have the grip of 3 lap old tyres on Peter Pavlovich.
Yeah, indeed. Well, let's see what Henry King can do to hold off Pavlovich here for the last position in the top 10. Incident under review from race control as Pavlovich making the move up the inside here. Will King give it to him or try to hold fast round the outside? Like Senna and Mansell in 1986, a drag race to the line, but we've still got 6.5 minutes left in the race. This is far from over.
You aim for the King, you best not miss. So King got good traction on the wide line around the outside. And I think when you're on the older tyres, that's what you're looking for, the larger sweeping lines, because if you get pinched to a really tight line, then you're not going to get the traction down well. You're going to have too much steering angle in as you need to use the throttle and the brake. It's not going to work for you quite as well. He holds on, but every single car around him has better tyres than he.
Yeah, indeed. Henry King's going to have a lot to work with in these final few laps as it's still going on here behind Craig Mason. Isaac Edwards having to make way for Dion de Graaf there. De Graaf down 3 spots from where he started. He's got some work to do. So is Dan Stevens also down 3.
Correction, down from where he qualified, up from where he started.
Yes, true. My apologies.
I feel like such a nerd, but yeah.
Yeah. Oh, look, I keep forgetting that Dion de Graaf started in the pit lane, but Pavlovich has finally gotten past Henry King here, and it happened at the dry sack hairpin, and it looks just like a textbook maneuver there. Pavlovich on the fresher tyres just had more grip in the braking zone. King
You know what I mean
tried
about
to
the
line it
tight
up on
line?
the exit.
The throttle on the tight exit just doesn't work on the old tyres.
No, certainly doesn't. You saw how much King slid on the exit there, and Pavlovich is still having some trouble keeping those tyres under him. They may be fresher, but if you keep locking them up like that, they're not going to last too long. 5 minutes to go for the V8s, and Dylan Gray still leads from Aaron Gilbert by 4 seconds, but Gilbert is steadily gaining. It is coming down, isn't it?
Yeah, it sure is. I don't know exactly the source of that. Maybe if these long green runs, Dylan Gray's starting to worry about his fuel a little bit compared to Gilbert, who might have fractionally taken a little bit more. Man, exciting everywhere you look in both pictures. Track temp coming down as we are now 7 minutes past 5, and you can see that green line just slowly cooling off the track surface into the late afternoon, early evening. So probably all the spectators are having a nap.
Yeah, I think it'd be a nice time to have a nap as Dylan Gray has a problem, and a big one indeed, coming into Angel Nieto corner. That is a massive error there. He just needs to hold on for another 4 minutes and he'll have a win in the books here in the V8s category. But Aaron Gilbert is coming. You see him looming in the background there. Richard Mayer not too long of a way behind either. Just looks like a real lock up there for Dylan Gray on the downshift. Good on him to keep the car going forward, but it's not what you want to see.
Yeah, you're not... Oh, a little bit of it again in turn 1. It's not quite a straight braking zone there as you're flowing from one side of the racetrack to the other. Turn 1 should be simpler, but again, once you've had a lock up and a slide like that, you got to really be patient to get it back underneath you before you can push hard again. And Aaron Gilbert smells an opportunity. Richard Mayer should have had some pretty decent tyres back in 3rd as well, but he's not quite closing in as quick as perhaps I would have expected. Dylan Gray really just needs to settle here. 2 more laps isn't long.
No, certainly isn't. Just hit your marks, brake a bit earlier if you need to. Just make sure that you get out the other side of the corner without incident. That's really what he has to do now. I mean, after the fantastic start he had, it'd be a real shame to see his race go south from here. But we'll have to wait and see. With 2.5 minutes left on the clock and a lap time of about 1 minute and 42 seconds, minute 43, expecting that next lap is going to be the last. As, oh lordy, that's yet another problem there for Craig Mason, and he spins around coming out of turn 2.
So it was, Craig Mason who's had to pit twice versus Daniel Stevens, who got held long in the first stop for the unsafe pit entry. Both of them having a tough one, but it continues to be even tougher for Craig Mason. Not much traction at the rear of the car. We might be headed for 2 more laps here as well. So the clock is always so interesting in these. Lap times are about 1:43. There's 1:54. So just 10 seconds either side. We get sent around for 2 more laps. Barney has no white flag.
Yeah, so that's 2 more laps that Dylan Gray has to keep this car under him, but you can tell in the behavior of that machine, he's just having so much trouble keeping it on a steady arc through these corners. I'm noticing that he has to have a couple of goes at it almost every time he goes through turn 1 or so, not to mention down here at turn 5. Just be smooth and gentle on the throttle. Meanwhile, bit of a problem here in the vicinity of Daniel Stevens in the number 3. It looks like a bit of a bump and making his way past the Simblacks car.
That related to the penalty failing to leave racing room.
Yeah, he just got a penalty from race control there.
Oh, warning. But it was from that incident in particular.
Okay, cool. All right, so Dan Stevens gets to live another day. Gilbert's continuing to make up the gap here. Remember, Gilbert's on 2-lap older tyres, so he should have the pace disadvantage, but he's just being a lot smoother and more controlled than Dylan Gray is at the moment. And Richard Mayer has also gotten some pace back. He is faster than Gray, but not faster than Gilbert. 30 seconds on the clock, and Dylan Gray will enter the final corner for the second last time in this race. He's just got another 4.4 Ks to go, and he can call himself the race winner here at Jerez. But the hard-charging Aaron Gilbert behind. Will Gray be able to pull it off?
Don't forget, Matt Hayward's maybe a little bit too far back on the final lap, but no one's got more grip than Matt Hayward. If everyone goes and skittles, he can scoop up the best, the amount of grip that he's still got left, having run so long in the first stint, to then put on some fresh tyres really late into the second stint.
Yeah, well, Hayward, as you said, a bit too far behind to really make a difference at this point, but if one of these guys makes a mistake on the final lap, then he'll be right there to pounce. Hayward having a great run up the field from 10th to 4th so far. Just needs to hold on to that. A little bit of lapped traffic ahead for Dylan Gray. It looks like that's Sean Slater, who's running about 3-4 seconds slower at the moment. So I don't know if he'll catch him by the end of the lap, but he just needs to focus on his lines. Dylan Gray has been working so hard in the last 12 months. He almost looks like a completely different driver to the one that he used to be, and it's definitely shown in his form. Don't want to be praising him too early, though. We've still got a few more corners to go. Don't want to commentators curse him on the last lap. Just need to keep yourself stable over these nice flat curbs. Car 20 of Dion de Graaf gets a black flag for the incident limit, and Dylan Gray, only with 1 corner to go, he escapes the incident limit black flag. He's going to vault his way into the final corner. Slater, I think, is going to let him go here. It looks like he will. Dylan Gray is going to win V8s at Jerez. What a drive.
Well, he was clearly the second fastest car for a long way in that first stint. Then into the second stint, things went wrong for Joe Mahoney, and then Dylan Gray picked it up, held onto it, and takes that race win, having gained quite a few spots out of a third row start.
Yeah, brilliant run up from Dylan Gray and from Aaron Gilbert as well, who gains 5 spots. Matt Hayward up 6 spots. Stephen Banks and Peter Pavlovich will round out the top 10 for Pacific Esports Racing. Good run from both of them, up 9 and 7 positions respectively. Brilliant stuff. Isaac Edwards, though, contact with Dion de Graaf. He'll get a license point penalty for that. This is the reason why de Graaf exceeded the incident limit. Edwards already with damage. I think just missed the braking point for the final corner, and that would have been a 4x incident point run up for de Graaf, which put him over the limit. But celebrations for Dylan Gray. Maximum points from this round, and not quite the fastest lap, but he certainly got close.
Yeah, that was interesting to me. I was thinking maybe Matt Haywood could have a run at resetting the fastest lap of the race after that second stint. You know, we're going to have a short run on a slightly cooler track, but no, none of them came close to what Mahoney did with a 140.4 in the first stint. Even though obviously they picked up a little bit more pace on the new set of tyres in that second stint. None of them got to the same heights as Mahoney in stint 1.
Absolutely, but it's Dylan Gray who finishes on top, 2.3 seconds ahead of Aaron Gilbert. Richard Mayer will complete the podium. Matt Haywood and Gavin Cox round out the top 5. Sean van der Meulen, very good drive from him, but unfortunately it came undone for him after the pit stop. He'll have to settle for 6th, with Hanma gaining 2 spots to finish 7th. Dina Lessie in 8th place, and then Banks and Pavlovich working their way up through the field steadily all race, awarded with a top 10 each.
Then we find Henry King, Troy Allen, Blake Fitzpatrick, Dan Mirko, Colin Bruns. Then Dan Stevens there after being held long in his pit box for the unsafe pit entry, cutting the white line. Joe Mahoney, also with his woes with the black flags, ends up in 17th despite clearly being the strongest qualifier, the fastest race pace, just in and around that compulsory pit stop with a little hiccup that cost him big time from the race lead down to 17th place. He ends up ahead of Isaac Edwards, who's picked up a penalty that I guess will apply later. Dion de Graaf also being penalised for the incident limit, and a few other little things having started from the pit lane as well. First car off the lead lap, and only just, as we saw, Sean Slater getting past between the final corner and the checkered flag.
Yeah, Mason, unfortunately, with incident point drive through, I think at the very end, 3 laps down. Hayden Green 8 laps down, though he did finish on track and take the checkered flag. Simon Vella, unfortunately, we didn't see much of him in this race, and he ultimately retires 13 laps from the end. We didn't see any visits from the safety car here, which meant Dylan Gray was free to take victory at full pace. He joins us now. Congratulations, Dylan. A win on the board for you in the V8s. Must feel good.
No, it was scary. My headset died near the back end of the race.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Talk us through that. At what point did that happen?
About 5 minutes left. It just went, oh, no, we're going flat. So I went, shit, crap, try and change my battery over. No, so I went to put the old battery back in and try and see if it fires up. And it did, and I held on.
Was that the reason why we saw you have that little slide coming into the double right-hander?
Yeah, it was when through the double right hand, that's why I dropped off almost 2 seconds back to Aaron Gilbert behind me.
Yeah, wow. So not entirely smooth sailing for you, but still, your pace in the initial stint of the race, good enough to put you into that victory position once Mahoney had his issues. So it was all about executing the start here, really.
Yeah, I did a race in the later supercars earlier this week and around here, and I got a bad start, just burst into wheel spin. I tried to do the exact same pressure and all that, and it worked tonight, which I was happy about. So I'm happy to take the win. Brings me back up more higher up in the championship, which I'm happy about.
Yeah, as you should be, and very well done to you. Is there anyone that you'd like to thank for your victory before we let you go?
My spotter tonight, Caleb, who spotted me for the first part of the race before the pit stop. He's got real life racing, so he had to hop off. SLM, Suit Speed, and W as a sponsor and all that.
Excellent stuff from Dylan Gray. Congratulations once again, and we'll let him go celebrate his victory. Well, it looks like we're only going to have time to talk to Dylan here, David. So, again, fantastic night of racing in V8SCOPS supports. Plenty more drama than I was expecting.
Yeah, certainly. It's a track that flows in some sections, challenges the change of direction and the traction out of these cars, gave us some really good racing. It was messy in some spots, and Joe Mahoney will probably be, I don't know, washing away his sorrows somewhere, and Dylan Gray nearly ended up in exactly that same camp and just held on towards the end.
Yep, certainly did. Well, we are going to stay at Jerez for V8SCOPS on Sunday, but the next round of V8SCOPS Support Series is going to be taking place on the 14th of June at Winton Motor Raceway. There have been some calendar shake-ups for V8SCOPS. Quite a few rounds have been shifted as a result of other commitments here on SimSpeed. So on Sunday, we will bring you an updated championship graphic to let you know when the rest of the races are being run. But yeah, that's going to be it for V8SCOPS supports here on Friday night. Of course, on Sunday, V8SCOPS itself will be racing at the Circuito de Jerez starting at 6:15 Australian Eastern Standard Time. Thanks very much for watching, everybody. No matter where you've come from, we really appreciate you tuning in to view V8SCOPS supports for 2024. Big thanks to Proven Energy and all other associated sponsors here in the V8SCOPS support series, as well as the crew at Aussie Online Gaming for putting this show on in the first place. I'm Reese Gardner, David Haynes was with me in the comms box, and Jay Kennedy behind the scenes. We're SimSpeed TV. We'll see you on Sunday.